Welcome to the Westminster channel. And I know a lot of you have been saying to me in the comments, I do read them, you've been saying it's time to walk away and go for no deal. And Ben Habib, who I'm going to speak to in a minute, has written a Telegraph piece. If you haven't read it yet, go and check it out. Ben, your piece saying, let's stop talking to Barnier, show our mettle by going for a no-deal Brexit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Michael Barnier is having a bit of a laugh at our expense. I think he feels that he's got the UK on the same sort of back foot that he had May on. And we've got to disabuse him of that. Until we can convince the EU that we're serious about leaving without a deal, frankly, they'll keep messing us about. And the best way to convince them that we're serious is walk away.
Yeah, I mean, you say that you talk about how in the negotiating mandate with the released in February this year, it states that if the deal has not been reached by the 30th of June, the UK would likely cease negotiations and make preparations to exit the transition period without a deal. Why do you think that there hasn't been that much talk from the government about no deal?
Well, I suspect that Boris Johnson doesn't believe in a no-deal Brexit for all his bravado and his championing of, you might recall Michael last year, he said we'd be out by 31st October with or without a deal. But actually, I think that they don't believe in no deal. Michael Gove, who's actually in charge of no deal planning, is on the record saying he doesn't believe in no deal. He thinks it would be bad for the United Kingdom. And the EU, of course, will be listening to all of this. So they'll be well aware of the pronunciations made by Michael and other people. And the other thing, Michael, is when you set a deadline in a negotiation, as they did in February, saying that if we haven't got a deal by 30th June, most likely we'll cease negotiations. If you set that kind of deadline, then for goodness sake, stick with it, because your bluff is called. And the minute your bluff is called, you are so weak. And, we're now at the end of August. We're slipping into September. They're talking about trying to get a deal in September. The only deal the EU will now do is one which basically requires the United Kingdom to give up its negotiating ground, to give up its red lines, and in effect to give up its sovereignty. So I think the only way to balance the negotiations and bring them back in the UK's favour is for us now to walk out of the room.
What do you make of David Frost putting out a statement after the latest round of negotiations saying that the EU essentially want to agree on a continuity of policy on areas like fisheries and state aid before other areas are discussed? What do you make of the EU stance?
Well, the EU sense, I think, that we're weak and they're going to push for the big issues first, designed to make us slip on the big issue. And once they've captured us on the big issues, and the big issues here are state aid laws and fisheries, if they can capture us on that, well, then there's an open goal for everything else they want.
Yeah, I mean, what's your view on, what do you think the biggest dangers are as the clock tick down to the transition period if we don't go for no deal? What would be the massive downsides of that in your eyes?
Well, I don't think the government is ready for no deal. Where I'm aware of the conspicuous absence of any government guidance on what business, for example, should be doing on 31st December if we end up in a no deal scenario. So I don't think the government's getting ready for no deal. And as we get closer and closer to December, I think the panic in government will get bigger and bigger. And I think Michel Barnier is onto it. And we will find that the UK will slip. And I suspect we will give in to their demands. And the biggest danger here, Michael, is actually something the Brexit Party said last October when we first saw this deal emerge, is that we end up with Brexit in name only, because we remain tied to EU state aid laws, EU competition laws, employment laws, tax matters, fishery quotas, and actually hidden in amongst all the rest of it, something called other programs on the negotiating agenda that David Frost has. They're also trying to corner us into commitments on defence. So I think what we're going to find, unless the government gets strong very quickly, is that we're going to be in the EU in name, in all but name.
I mean, the way I put it to people plainly is, wouldn't it be absurd in a future general election if we were still in a position whereby, be it Labour, Conservative, or whoever else, couldn't put a policy pledge in a manifesto because it broke EU rules that we'd signed up to in continuity? Wouldn't that be an absurd situation?
That would be an absurd position. And actually, we're already in that position, Michael. You know, I've been banging on about the Northern Irish Protocol. Well, we've actually committed Northern Ireland to EU state aid laws, dynamic alignment with EU state aid laws. And that doesn't stop at Northern Ireland, because there'll be companies in Northern Ireland that have branches in the in Great Britain and vice versa. And so we've already kind of got this horrible mishmash of commitments to the EU, out of which we're going to find it quite difficult to extricate ourselves. But if we slip on these major negotiations, if we sign the United Kingdom up to those kind of things, and as you say, no government will be able to stand on an independent manifesto.
Now, to be fair, David Frost has consistently, in all of his statements, said that the UK position is that we want to regain full sovereignty over, our country. What do you have faith in Frost to hold the mettle? Do you think we're going to see a shift then? What's your prediction on what is going to happen in the next few months?
I think David Frost is a good man. I think his heart is in exactly the right place. And you've got to remember what his mandate is. His job is to negotiate the future trade agreement. His job is not to look at all the other aspects of the withdrawal agreement, some of which are really pernicious. And I think he's doing the best job he can, effectively with one hand tied behind his back. And I say he's got one hand tied behind his back because, as I mentioned, I don't think the government is committed to a no-deal scenario in the event that the EU is only prepared to give us a bad deal. And as we all know, unless you're prepared to leave without a deal, you're going to get a bad deal. And so David, I'm sure, is doing the best he can, but he's got this one arm tied behind his back because the government, I don't think, is committed to no deal in the event that it can't get a good deal. And actually, I don't think it's ready for no deal.
I mean, as I said, the people that watch Westminster, the amount of comments I'm getting at the moment saying that we've had enough of these games with the EU, it's time to walk away, it's time to go WTO, it's time to go no deal. Ben, we're not hearing it much from elsewhere. Well, can you give us what the opportunities of walking away with no deal, what the benefits, what the positives of that would be in your eyes?
The opportunities are vast. People have forgotten there's an immediate, massive Brexit dividend. The first dividend we're going to get is the 18 billion a year, which we pay them. The next dividend we're going to get, and we should do it actually if we're bold as a nation, is levy tariffs on German cars and so on. And that would yield a net 8 billion for the UK. So just between those two numbers, we're talking about 26 billion a year extra for the exchequer if we had the courage to no deal. And then on top of that, if we're not fettered by EU state aid laws and all those other laws I mentioned, we'd be able to deregulate our financial services, we'd be able to deregulate our businesses, we'd be able to become what the EU fear, which is the Singapore on Thames. We'd be able to be a bright, nimble, effective trading entity on the doorstep of the EU. That's why they want us tied in, because they want to fetter the United Kingdom. They want the ability to go on exporting their goods to us without us being able to reposition ourselves, and they want to prevent us from being a competitive, independent nation. What they fear is precisely what we must aim to become. And I don't know why the government doesn't have the vision and the confidence that certainly I've got in that approach, taking the United Kingdom down the Singapore on Thames route. And the other thing I just want to quickly mention is, Singapore is not an entirely free market economy. Singapore actually has quite a degree of interventionist policies. And one of the things I think this government should be doing is being a little more interventionist, is making sure that we level up the country. And in order to do that properly, we cannot be tied into EU state aid law. We have to have the ability for the government to support businesses in the north of England, in Wales, in Scotland, and Northern Ireland. We've got to have that ability. And the EU want to stop us from having it.
Terrific insight as ever, Ben. We're going to be speaking lots more in the run-up to the end of the transition period, I'm sure. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe. Go to westminster.club, become a supporter of Westminster. Ben Habib, thank you very much, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Michael.